What about your friends? Will they hang around? Will they let you down? Hey, whoa. If y'all didn't know that was TLC, the subject of this video is not TLC, it's David Benavidez and David Morrell. So without further ado, roll that beautiful bean footage.
Hey, hear him. Down goes Frazier. Down goes Frazier.
Is this thing working? Sup with it, y'all? It's Hot Boxing Minute, your favorite pharmaceutical engineer turned boxing analyst, back at you with that uncut realness. Of course, as only I can serve it to you, the subject of this here video is going to be David Benavidez and David Morrell. What in the hell is going on with that whole debacle? It's been pretty much occupying all the social media feeds. A lot of he said, she said going. Actually, you know what? Before I even go into David Benavidez and David Morrell, let's have a talk about Canelo derangement syndrome. My boy Cali X Boxing on YouTube created that term, and I'm running with it. Canelo derangement syndrome. Anytime you mention anything about the 168 division, or you mention David Benavidez, there gotta be some maggot mouth hater that gotta chime in about Canelo Alvarez, even if it's unrelated to him. Or even if you mention Canelo, they just start foaming at the mouth like a pit bull that has rabies. Canelo derangement syndrome is when grown-ass man children get in their effeminate, feminine energy and get illogical and start saying a bunch of stuff that doesn't make sense. I saw the same derangement syndrome when Floyd was on top of the game. I saw the same derangement syndrome when Manny Pacquiao was on top of the game. I saw it with Oscar De La Hoya. I remember seeing it with Roy Jones Jr. A bunch of guys with low emotional intelligence and minimal understanding of the game of boxing. When they see the top guy in the game, all they can do is tear him down every chance they get. I don't really know. I'm so busy working my full-time job with my 2 side hustles, I don't have time to worry about what another man more successful than me is doing as far as hating them. I'm taking notes, trying to study the chessboard. That's what I'm doing. Canelo derangement syndrome. Welcome to some new vocabulary words, folks. Canelo derangement syndrome. Now, I mentioned David Benavidez, and everyone talks about Canelo. Let's talk about David Benavidez, shall we? Can we do that? Anyways, doesn't matter. My video, I'm going to talk about David Benavidez and David Morrell. So for those of you that don't know, David Morrell made an announcement, or actually, Dan Rafeal made an announcement a few days ago on Twitter. And in this announcement, he said Samson Lukowicz confirmed that we've got David Benavidez versus David Morrell for October or November or something to that effect. Now, all the channels lit up. Everybody's like, this is an awesome fight, at least for the hardcore. Of course, you know, the casuals are like, why is Canelo ducking Benavidez? I don't even know where that comes from, to be honest. But sure enough, about a day or two after that thing is dropped, then David Benavidez drops an image on his IG story, but only for a brief period. And in this IG story, it was a picture of the report that he's supposed to be fighting David Morrell. He says, this is cap. I didn't agree to any kind of fight. So he pretty much said that Dan Rafeal is lying. He said Dan Canobio is lying. He said Sibi Boxing is lying. And the unfortunate part about this whole situation is that way back before the fight with Caleb Plant, there was an interview on YSM Media, January 26th, with Samson Lukowicz, and Samson, David Benavidez's manager, says, we are going to be fighting David Morrell next. We've got the contract in place to fight David Morrell next. That was out of Samson's mouth. So we fast forward down to that moment where Dan Rafeal dropped the announcement, and all of a sudden everybody's upset because David Benavidez said the fight's not going down. So what happens is, of course, online everybody's talking about Canelo's ducking, David's ducking. There's all kind of miscommunication going on. So David Benavidez says there was no fight in place, even though Samson Lukowicz said in an interview before the Caleb Plant David Benavidez fight on YSM Media on January 26th, it's on YouTube, he says that we have a contract in place for David Morrell. And then all of a sudden, Dan Rafeal drops the announcement about the David Morrell fight. David Benavidez drops the IG post where he says the fight's not happening. Where are you getting this information from? So all of the boxing investigators and boxing journalists go dig back and they find that Samson Lukowicz video and they're like, this fight has always been in place. So if that fight was always in place, what was going on with the offer to Canelo Alvarez? In an interview on Fight Hype posted a couple days ago with David Benavidez, David Benavidez said there was a $45+ million offer to Canelo on behalf of Samson Lukowicz, the PBC, and Al Heyman that Canelo and that team didn't even acknowledge or whatever have you. That's not even the main issue. The main issue is that in that same day, Fight Hype dropped a video with Jose Benavidez Sr., David's dad. And Jose Benavidez Sr. even said, we got a contract in place with David Morrell, even though David Morrell's management and David Morrell's trainer, Ronnie Shields, think that David Morrell is not ready for that fight. Let's fight. So David Benavidez says that there is no contract. He agreed to nothing. Jose Sr. says there's a contract. Samson Lukowicz way back says there's a contract. This ain't about pointing fingers. The truth of the situation is this. There's a lot of miscommunication going on in Team David Benavidez. Maybe it's on accident. Maybe they haven't really thoroughly communicated what they're supposed to say to the press. Maybe it's on purpose. Maybe they did this to drum up, public interest in that fight between Benavidez and Morrell, because only really the hardcore boxing fans know David Morrell. I don't really know. Maybe there just really isn't good communication going on within Team David Benavidez. I'm not really sure. The one thing we do know is that they need to figure out how they're going to address the public and what they're going to say from this point forward, because a lot of us are trying to figure out who dropped the ball in the communication where. But either way, I like the fight between David Benavidez and David Morrell. Boxing community, what do you think about this whole debacle? I'm almost certain we're getting Morrell versus David Benavidez, and then also Charlo versus Canelo at the end of the year. How do you feel about both of those fights? More specifically, David Benavidez and David Morrell? Let me know in the comments section, y'all. Let's chop this up. Hit that like button if you haven't already done so. This is Hot Boxing Minute, the future of boxing analysis on YouTube and TikTok. Peace.